we had the International Monetary Fund release its World Economic Outlook update. And they maintained India's GDP forecast or estimate for current financial year at 6.8, next financial year at 6.1, and importantly, for 24-25, they kept India's real GDP growth forecast at 6.8%. So they show an acceleration of India's GDP after a slight dip which they estimate for the next financial year. In fact, the presentation today is going to focus on this aspect, that India's GDP growth is poised to do better in the remainder of this decade. The survey looks ahead to the medium term because the pandemic response and recovery phase is over. In fact, Chapter 1, the title itself says, State of the Economy, Recovery Complete. And therefore, after a long time, we have banking, non-banking and corporate sectors with healthy balance sheets, and they are ready to borrow and lend and invest. So we don't have to speak about pandemic recovery anymore. We have to look ahead to the next phase of India's economic growth process. Foreign investment licensing norms have been liberalized. There is automatic route for more sectors now, 100% automatic FDI, and there is a single window facilitation portal, the outcome of which is seen in the actual gross FDI inflows, the blue line shows you. As a percentage of GDP as well, it has gone up from 2.2% to 2.6% of GDP. Urban unemployment ratio has come down during the pandemic peak of around 20% down to 7%. And the worker population ratio has picked up from a low of around 35% back to around 45%. EPFO payroll data, which tracks new workers joining the scheme with salaries of 15,000 or below, in 22-23, their levels are running well above the previous 3 years. Micro and small businesses, we all know that India has a preponderance of micro businesses, but the recent changes in changing the threshold and also adding a new criteria turnover apart from investment, and more importantly, the provision of emergency credit line guarantee scheme during the pandemic have enabled that this sector remains in good health. And the evidence of it is what we see. GST paid by micro, small and medium enterprises didn't really flag or slacken in the pandemic year. They kept up. If anything, they registered gradual increases from 18-19 all the way to 21-22 as well. If you look at the industrial production, consumer durables, infrastructure and construction goods and manufacturing, they are running at a rate better than they were in the previous 2 years. And the middle portion is very important. 10 out of 10 sectors in the private listed company space, all these sectors, investments undertaken by companies in the first half of 22-23 is higher than what it was in the first half of FY 21-22. Air passenger and cargo traffic are now running at more than 90% of the pre-pandemic levels. And as I mentioned earlier, credit growth is picking up across different sectors, MSMEs, large industry, services, and non-food credit. All of them are growing at more than double-digit rates. And even NBFCs, as you can see on the right side, their credit disbursal is also rising. And in general, credit to MSMEs is now on an average has grown at around 30% since January 2022. And not only the banking system, but also the non-banking financial corporations, their non-performing assets are lower than they were 15 months ago or 18 months ago. Thanks to many of the initiatives which you see around this slide, what you see is that the share of private sector investment or capital formation in agriculture has reached a level which is higher in the last 12 years. Since 2013-14, 9.3% of overall gross capital formation is contributed by the private sector in agricultural sector. And it has been facilitated by the creation of the Agricultural Infrastructure Fund, a national agriculture market which has linked farmers with direct buyers, FPOs which take into account organic farming options as well, and more importantly for the farmer, income support as well as risk management through crop insurance. The Insolvency Bankruptcy Code restores trust between the borrower and the lender. The borrower has an exit option and so does the lender. And that is the key to this. And the important thing is, more than 7 lakh cases, even before they come into the IBC process, have actually gotten resolved before they enter the process. And that is the most important thing, which doesn't get captured in the data. The usefulness of IBC is in ensuring borrower payment culture even before they enter into a resolution process. Ranging from electricity, healthcare, food security, affordable housing, drinking water and sanitation, all the way to cooking fuel, all-weather roads and skill development, outlays have become outcomes and they are covered in detail in the social chapter. More specifically in terms of outcomes, you can see here general government spending, both union and state governments put together. Education spending has gone up from 5.3 lakh crores to 7.6 lakh crores, and health almost more than doubled in the last 3 years. And other than health and education, we have gone up from 4.86 lakh crores to 8.3 lakh crores approximately. The outcomes are seen on the right side. Primary school dropout rate has come down from around 4.7% down to 1.5%. The pupil to teacher ratio has improved from 34 to 26, and there are going to be 14,500 PM Shri schools to be established in the next 4-5 years. Maternal mortality ratio has come down in the last 7 years, 167 to 97. Child mortality ratio has dropped from 45 to 32, and under 5 mortality ratio has dropped from 39 to 28. Because of these, and because of government's health insurance programs, a family that used to spend nearly 2/3 of health expenditure on its own is now spending only 48%. And stunting in under 5 children is down by about 3 percentage points, and institutional delivery births have gone up from 79% to 89% in the country, which is a good sign, which means it will naturally have an important role in reducing both infant and under 5 mortality, as well as more and more institutional births happen. Therefore, the survey projects the economic growth rate to be 6.5% for the next financial year, and the range we have projected for the outcomes is between 6 and 6.8%. Baseline is 6.5, the range is 6 to 6.8. Some of you might think the range is asymmetric in nature, and it is deliberate. Because we do understand that the global political and economic environment remains still rife with uncertainty. We have many known unknowns as well as unknown unknowns, and we also do not know how the speed with which global economy recovers will lead to the kind of inflation pressures that we saw last year.